It's Thursday, September 11th, 2024, reacting to last night's first, and I'm pretty sure now it's for sure, only presidential debate. Next on the AM Update. Last night on ABC News was the first, and I'm pretty sure after what happened last night, only presidential debate that went down between Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala. The reason why I think this is now the only debate, and I thought before this debate happened it would be the only debate, is because several things became abundantly clear. At least two important things became abundantly clear. Kamala Harris is unwilling and incapable of thinking on her feet and thinking for her own. That became abundantly clear through the debate, and it's for reason number two, I think from Trump's perspective. She had her hand held by the moderators of that debate for about the last 3/4 of that debate. So from Trump's perspective, he cannot do 3-on-1 again, or at least from his perspective, 1-on-3 again. It was an ugly, ugly display of partisanship last night on the part of the moderators of the debate. That would be David Muir and Lindsey Davis. All that Kamala had to do throughout the debate, and she did it well, was delivered rehearsed and canned lines and speeches and monologues about various issues. She did have recallability, so it was clear that she practiced debate prep very, very hard, but she had a lot of help and a lot of hand-holding from the moderators. And when I say help and hand-holding, I'm putting that very, very mildly and charitably, to say the least. So what I was going to do, I was going to take key moments, key clips from this debate. I'm not going to do that now because I don't really think there's anything to be gained from it. Let's start here, though. This was basically from about the 20-minute mark on, maybe the 15-minute mark on. This was the format of the quote-unquote debate. You ready for this? David Muir of ABC says something along the lines of, "Donald Trump, you are a terrible, terrible human being. Would you like to talk about it?" Donald Trump would say, "No, I'm not a terrible human being. Donald Trump, we need to move on." Kamala Harris, Donald Trump says he's a terrible human being. Would you like to answer? And Kamala Harris says, "You are killing people, Donald Trump. You're not just terrible. You are literally murdering people in their homes right now." I'm not really exaggerating. That was how bad it was. And yeah, that should have been expected going into the debate. And I'll get more into the ramifications of this later. But I'm just going to go back on my X profile last night, just stream of consciousness, and kind of just share my thoughts as we went along. ABC News was sure to remind all of us that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, about 30 times I counted in the 5 minutes leading up to the debate, they were careful to remind us about 30 times that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump had never met each other. They kept reminding us of that over and over and over again. And sure enough, Kamala Harris went over to Donald Trump for a very awkward handshake where she said something along the lines of, I'm Kamala Harris. And I think her voice cracked a little bit too. Maybe not. I don't know. Regardless, she looked incredibly and sounded incredibly nervous for about the first 15 to 20 minutes. What changed after the first 15 to 20 minutes? Well, again, we'll get into that in just a little bit. So the debate actually started off talking about the economy for about the first 10 to 15 minutes. I thought for the most part, Trump handled himself well. It was abundantly clear from the word go that all Kamala Harris was there to do was to deliver canned lines. That was all she was there to do. And she did it, as I said, very, very well. She actually got to Trump's right on the origins of COVID. She laid the entire blame of COVID at Donald Trump's feet. At the end of the day, though, for the first 15 minutes, that's probably going to be when the most people are watching. I thought he handled himself fairly well. Again, she was nervous. She was delivering canned lines. He was holding his own. I thought it was a stalemate through the first 15 minutes or so, which is probably, again, when the most people are watching. Also, the most people are probably still watching through 15, 20, 30 minutes, and that's when they started talking about baby killing. And in terms of rating Donald Trump's answers on baby killing, you can guess what Kamala Harris's answers were. You're literally trying to kill women. It's your fault. You're killing women by not letting them murder their babies. That was Kamala Harris's lines. I'm rating Donald Trump's response on a curve that takes into account the fact that he is Donald Trump and he is pro-choice. And I thought his lines were pretty good. They were okay. He pivoted right away to how radical and extreme Democrats are on the issue of baby killing. He did okay. But then they kind of went back and forth. Kamala Harris just kept telling lie after lie after lie. And Donald Trump, that was kind of the beginning, the nascent stages of him taking the bait, which he did over and over again for the duration of the debate. He tried to pivot at one point when talking about baby killing to student loan forgiveness. That was really, really weird. And of course, ABC News, we spent like 10 minutes talking about the economy, and then we spent the next 15 minutes talking about baby killing. That's just ridiculous. Then this was the first major bait that was gobbled up by Donald Trump. Kamala Harris had some sort of jab about how she wants her supporters to go to Donald Trump's rallies and see all of the people that leave midstream or mid-speech because they're being bored out of their minds by Donald Trump. And that would have been a great moment for Donald Trump to say, I don't want any more of your supporters to come to my rallies because one of them tried to blow my head off. Instead, no, he took the bait. And he said, no, my rallies are wonderful. People love coming to my rallies. They love America. I was shaking my head when I heard that. Further on in the debate, Kamala bragged about Dick Cheney's endorsement. That's not exactly something to brag about, even in Democrat land to this day. There was one moment Trump had a pretty good clap back at Kamala Harris. Again, he was from about the 20-minute mark on, with limited exceptions. He was playing defense against a nitwit. Now, again, he was up against two debate moderators as well. But Kamala Harris tried to get him on the issue of how he couldn't keep his White House staffed. And he came back at her and said, why didn't you fire anybody involved with the botched Afghanistan pullout? That was a good moment for Donald Trump. But Trump just kept taking the bait. Taking the bait on issue after issue after issue. And it's not really... We don't even need to talk about the specifics of the issue. I laid out from about the 20 to 25 minute mark on, I laid out to you the format of this debate. And I don't want this to sound whiny, and I'll get to that in a little bit, because Trump is not absolved of responsibility at all here. The format of the debate was one of the moderators would ask Donald Trump why he's such a terrible human being. Donald Trump would try to come back and say, I'm not a terrible human being. She's lying. The moderators would interrupt and say, no, you actually got this fact wrong, this fact wrong. Not once did they fact check Kamala Harris last night, and she told a bevy of lies. They fact check Donald Trump a half dozen times. But each time they go back to Kamala, Trump you just heard Donald Trump lay out why he's such a terrible human being. What are your thoughts? And then she would go into saying that Donald Trump is murdering people in their houses right now as we speak. That was the format of the debate. So it doesn't really matter getting to the specific issues of the debate, because it wasn't really a debate. It was just propaganda. Having said that, though, Donald Trump could have easily, and I mean easily, and of course, I'm not up there on stage and talking to probably tens of millions of people. I understand that. But I know it can be done. I've seen great debaters through the ages. I mean, these GOP presidential debates back in 2016, that's one thing. There were opportunities. There were times when some of these senators, some of these governors would have to take on multiple people at a time. So I know it can be done, and some of them were pretty good at it. Donald Trump could have easily ended the election last night. He kept being handed the ball at the 1 yard line, and he kept kicking field goals. Just to give you an example, anytime that Kamala Harris tried to insult him on a personal level, and that was ad nauseum, Donald Trump could have just turned around and said, you know what, I understand. I understand you have a personal disdain for me, but it's really time to dial back the rhetoric. After all, one of your supporters tried to blow my head off. something along those lines. I mean, every now and then he would try to get back to immigration, the border, things like that, but it was just too many missed opportunities last night, over and over again. It's clear her plan was what I said it was going into this debate, get under his skin. And with the help of the moderators, he did that, or they did that, and got under his skin. You know, there were a few moments where I would criticize him, and I would think, oh my goodness. And then he'd come back with a pretty good pithy one-liner. There were a couple of times where Kamala would try to interrupt him, even though her mic was muted. One time, Donald Trump said, excuse me, I'm talking. And another time, Trump said, please be quiet, you know, things like that. But those are not really substantive things, not really policy smackdowns. So again, through the better part of the debate, Donald Trump just kept taking the bait, taking the personal insult bait. There was one moment, I believe it was on the issue of January 6th, where Kamala got in 3 different hoaxes in less than 2 minutes. It was the Charlottesville Very Fine People hoax, the J6 hoax, and then there was one more hoax at the end. I think it had something to do with white supremacy, all of which have been debunked. Oh no, it was the hoax about Trump saying that there's going to be a bloodbath in the country if he's not elected. He was talking about U.S. automakers. That's what he was talking about. She jam-packed 3 different media concocted hoaxes into less than 2 minutes. That gave you kind of an idea of what their strategy was. Oh, one more thing, one more legit Trump win. They tried to pin him down on Russia collusion, something along those lines, or weakness when it comes to Putin. And he reminded the audience and the moderators and Kamala that Vladimir Putin actually endorsed Kamala last week. And surprisingly, actually, at that point, ABC didn't try to push back. So that was... You got to take the wins where you can get them. So I don't know if the so-called normies were watching last night. I don't think they were, probably. If they were, how many of them? I don't know. And if the ones who were watching, whether they recognized the just abject, really nauseating bias on the part of the moderators. And even if the normies who were watching recognized the bias, do they really care? And I just have so little faith in the American people that I think the answer to those questions, those last 2 questions, are probably no. So there's that. Kamala looked and sounded less and less nervous as the debate went on, because she recognized at about the 20-minute mark, hey, I've got friends. They're right in front of me. My best friends, David Muir and Lindsey Davis. That's why she got so comfortable. She recognized she had backup, and that's why she looked less and less nervous. So the bottom line is this. Donald Trump could have put this away last night. He had multiple opportunities to pivot. Instead, it sounded like he was the incumbent and she was the outsider. And yeah, it's hard. I understand it's hard. It's 1 on 3, and he did a good job in some moments. But it's not too much to expect that he do the best job, because he's trying to get hardest job. It's not too much to expect that out of him. But he was unwilling, unable, or unprepared to do so. The bottom line is this. Kamala Harris, this is the basement campaign. She still, through a 90-minute debate, was not forced to think on her feet for herself once. A 90-minute debate, and she never had to do anything other than rehearse and regurgitate canned lines. And she did it really, really well. I mean, she thought on her feet as many times in this campaign as the number of people who voted for her in 2 Democrat primaries combined. Pour one out for democracy. She's just running the basement campaign. She just sounds cognitively a little bit more there than Joe Biden. So I don't know what the outcome of this will be. We'll get ratings in the next 48 hours or so to see how many people actually watched this debate. I think there was some polling out there that around 30% of the electorate didn't even know there was a debate tonight. We'll see how accurate that is. You know, my expectation would be 80 to 100 million people. We'll see. We'll see about that. but it was not the night that it could have been. And I'm not going to just sit here and complain about the media bias. That's baked into the cake. It's been baked into the cake for the last 20 years. Certainly the propagandist, pink lady from North Carolina level of propaganda, that's to be expected now, the year of our Lord 2024. If you're going into a debate like that with ABC News, and you have to know that's coming, and you have to be prepared. And it seems like the plan to get under Donald Trump's skin worked. It didn't fly off the handle like the doomed Biden-Trump debate from 2020 did. But man, he looked uncomfortable. And at the end of the day, if your middle name isn't either "they tried to blow my head off" or "you had 3.5 years to do this, why didn't you do anything?" you're losing the debate. And there were too many opportunities to pivot back to "you tried to blow my head off, and why didn't you do what you said you were going to do the last 3.5 years?" It made it sound like Donald Trump was the incumbent, and he's not. So, missed opportunity, best case scenario. Sorry for that very dour recap of last night's debate. That wasn't really a debate, it was just a propaganda session from ABC News. Thank you, David Muir. Had no idea you were running for president. We'll be back with your regular fare tomorrow on the Thursday edition. Oh, and a postscript. Right after I got done recording, Taylor Swift, international superstar, pop star, has endorsed Kamala Harris for president. Hide your ducks, hide your cats, because everywhere is about to be Springfield, Ohio.